So moving into the fourth skill is the skill of, is it a skill or is it more a belief? Maybe it's more of a belief. The belief that it's really important to take a holistic approach to healing and to, recovery from trauma or stress, right? And what I mean by this is that, there's a lot out there and it's just the way things work where, we'll move through like fads of like what's really cool or what's really good right now. And over the past, probably couple of years, there's been this big move towards like somatic therapy, for example, somatic coaching and working with the body. And that is really, really, really important. But so too is working with the mind, right? So too is working with the way that a person looks after themselves through their patterns and their sleep habits and their diet, right? It's all important. It's not that one thing is more important than the other. And something that I think is a really important belief and thing to remember is that although your body or your client's body has separate systems, so to speak, it is one big system of itself. And all of those separate systems have to work cohesively with one another in order to create a bigger ecosystem that is working optimally for that client's health and wellness generally, right? So I believe, and something that we teach in our course, and a lot of the actual tools and techniques that we facilitate in our program is around this, what I call like taking a holistic lens. So this means being able to work with our clients from both a top down, cognitive down, and bottom up, body based work up in order to facilitate true healing and integration. Now, something that is important to understand, and there's a lot of, you've probably heard the saying like, trauma is stored in the body, for example. And what that means is basically, in my way that I like to teach it, is that it means two key things. Number one is that when someone has unprocessed trauma, for example, meaning that they are stuck in what we would call toxic stress. Toxic stress is defined by being ongoing, an ongoing state of stress with a lack of resources in order to enable a person to adequately cope with the stress that they're under. So it's the sheer time and on like chronic stress condition over a long period of time with a lack of support that equals what we would call toxic stress. And this can also be coined as like, having a nervous system that is stuck in a dysregulated state. So it's stuck in fight or flight or freeze or shut down, right? As a result of something that happened to that person or multiple things that happened to that person with an inability of them to process it or regulate it at the time, either within themselves or within the community that they were living in or around at the time. So when a body, anybody, experiences ongoing toxic chronic stress, it wears and tears on the internal bodily systems, right? A lot of people don't stop to realize like what resources is my body utilizing in order to maintain this stress response, right? So your body draws on nutrients, vitamins, minerals, hormones, neurotransmitters in order to keep yourself in any one state. And if it's prioritizing those things, it even prioritizes certain parts of the brain, right? It prioritizes your limbic system, it prioritizes and sends energy to the amygdala, and it prioritizes the brainstem, which is the part of the brain associated with survival, right? So all of the focus, all of the blood flow, the energy that our body is utilizing is prioritizing this stress state that we're in because it fundamentally thinks that we are still in a state of danger or threat. Now, what that doesn't mean is that our body doesn't get the opportunity to recuperate, to recharge, to regenerate, to be able to heal properly. It moves the blood flow away from our major organs, such as our, digestive system and our reproductive system, to send that blood to our brain and our arms and our legs to fuel us with glucose to get away from that situation. But stress is designed to be a short-term response, not a long-term experience, right? So in this kind of redirection of blood, in the avoidance of like some of these key areas of our bodies, what happens is not only does inflammation spike in the body, but we start to experience symptoms of toxic stress and trauma. Those symptoms being things like, chronic migraines and headaches, tight shoulders, insomnia, sleep issues, stomach ulcers, digestive issues, irritable bowel syndrome, cardiovascular problems, issues with our respiratory system, missed cycles or an inability to reproduce, and problems with our fertility, painful periods. Like all of these things can be a symptom or symptoms of our body being in a chronic state of stress and therefore not having the resources that it's been needing to properly fuel these other parts of our bodies that maintain our overall health and wellness. So, in saying that, it's really important that we can work with the client's nervous system in helping it to downregulate or in helping it to find that state of kind of, baseline again, so that the body can have the time that it needs in order to recuperate and to heal properly from a physical standpoint, a physiological standpoint, and a nervous system standpoint. Now, in order to work with the nervous system effectively, we need to, for the most part, look at working with the body. So somatic work is really around helping the physical body to speak to the nervous system, enabling it to feel that sense of safety once more. And we can do this through certain types of movement. We can do it through looking at a person's posture, looking at their breath, looking at the somatic beliefs of self and where it's held in the body, and, simple practices to bring safety and relief to those spaces, right? And all of this work helps to regulate the nervous system, which in turn helps our client to become a lot more healthier and well in a general kind of, in generally speaking, right? Now, the second thing I want to say to that point before I dive into the next part is that this is really important, why it's really, really advisable for coaches and practitioners to have a really strong network of referrals that they can send their clients to work as a team to help that client to recover from whatever it is that they're experiencing. Now, if it's not up to us unless we have a background in, say, say a background in naturopathy, right? It's unethical of us to think that we can give our client appropriate supplement advice or dietary advice, right? That's not within our scope of practice. But if we understand that the physiology of the human body requires support, maybe adaptogens, maybe certain vitamins and minerals, things like magnesium, omega-3, your B vitamins, your probiotics, and I say this because I have a background in nutrition. I have a bachelor in health science that I did prior to becoming a therapist and doing my master's. So I can confidently tell you that there are some really key nutrients and things that the body requires, which then facilitates and helps the overall healing. So you having a good referral network is something that makes you a safe an ethical practitioner, right? So that you can work as a team collaboratively, taking a holistic approach in supporting your clients to make sure that their body is equipped with the resources it needs in order to combat some of those physiological things that are going on within the greater system, right? Now, the last thing I want to speak to about this and why it's really important to have this kind of top-down, bottom-up approach is that a lot of our stress, a lot of our memories, a lot of our experiences are stored in what we call a person's implicit memory. Your implicit memory is different from your explicit memory. Your explicit memory is where you can kind of recall a time and a date and the events of something that happened, right? So you have that ability to recall information. I know that on Wednesday last week at 7 o'clock, I ate this for breakfast. That's my explicit memory. My implicit memory uses a different part of my brain, and it stores my experiences in the form of sensations within my body. Your implicit memory is what is formed in utero. And so, for a lot of your clients, especially those who have experienced childhood trauma, they will have implicit memory, which is stored in their body, sensations and feelings that they have that they can't allocate a time and a date to, but they just feel it. And it feels like such a familiar feeling. In order to access these feelings, these sensations, these memories, we have to be able to safely guide our clients into their bodies, which is why somatic practices are really important because we want our clients to feel safe enough to explore that feeling of tightness in their chest or the lump in their throats or the suppression of emotion in their hips. And how do we work through releasing that, both through physical movement and breath and somatic experiences, but also then coming up to the mind through the rewiring of our thoughts and beliefs. And it's not only until we marry these two things together, the cognitive and the somatic, that we're able to facilitate a full body healing approach because we can't ignore the mind. The mind, it is what facilitates so much of the way that we see the world. If we only work with the body and not with the mind, then we're ignoring a fundamental part that actually limits so many of our clients, being their beliefs. And their beliefs come from their experiences, which then lead to their actions, which then, the whole thing goes in a big circle. So we want to be able to take this top-down and bottom-up approach to healing. So this is something that we cover in the certification course, but if that's not something that's of interest to you and you're just curious about this, then looking at like, okay, what do you tend to favor within your practice? Are you someone who really favors mindset and beliefs and cognitive restructuring and that type of work, CBT type stuff? Or are you someone who only works with the body but ignores the mind, right? You want to remember that the two are interlinked and they both speak to each other. So they both impact one another. If you want to go like a bit deeper into this, you can check out Baseline, which is my nervous system regulation program. And it really equips you with a lot of understanding around the different ways that the nervous system is activated and influenced, both from external factors, somatic factors, and belief factors, and what you can do to regulate either yourself or your clients. But I hope that has been helpful and just something that like is really, really important when you're looking at working with a client holistically is remembering that the body is one big system made up of lots of little systems. And so we have to consider each and every one in order for us to be able to really facilitate true healing and transformation. And that once again, this is done slowly and consistently over a period of time and usually working collaboratively with a range of professionals who can help to treat that person.